All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Mets Weekly. We are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X for pregame coverage of the Mets versus Dodgers Game 1 of the National League Championship Series. We've got tons to get into, tons to talk about going into this series as we've got quite a few storylines to discuss. Of course, some other points we get into going into this game. But before we do all of that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for live recordings of the Mets Weekly podcast following every Mets postseason game from here on out during their postseason run. For those of you watching live on playback, or and if you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. After tonight's game, of course, we will be going live for episode number 95 of the podcast, which will be our post game. For those of you in the live chat right now, I want to let you know we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all of that great stuff regarding this team, every thought that pops into your head. But if you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored. You're just being starred throughout the show. We'll try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Also, remember to follow Mets Weekly on X, TikTok, where we just wrapped up Frank's post-game thoughts titled The Mets Frankly Postgame. We'll be sure to have content over there during the offseason. But from here on out, for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day that these are recorded. So without further ado, let's get into this post-game show. Now, the Dodgers, let's say less than 48 hours ago, punched their ticket. The Mets had some breathing room. They could relax after such a crazy gauntlet that they had for, I don't know, like 12 straight days where they were just on the road the entire time. They ended off at home, were able to clinch the series at home, move on to the National League Championship Series. The feeling going into this one, and I'm gonna ask you here, Frank. I mean, we already knew pretty much that this would be the team that you were going to be facing in this round. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it got kind of dicey for the Dodgers, to be honest with you. I felt like San Diego was starting to get a little bit of momentum. The way they played at Dodger Stadium, you felt like, okay, now going back to San Diego, you would feel pretty good about your chances in the short series. And considering the condition of the Dodgers pitching and all the injuries that they have, you felt like things were kind of in the Padres' advantage. But the Dodgers ended up pulling it out. They had a really big game 5. Yamamoto gave them a great start, and they were able to shut down those Padres bats. Timely hitting from the Hernandezes, both Teoscar and Kike, really helped them kind of overcome that and persevere. So the Dodgers, here we go. I mean, this is kind of how you draw it up on because, I mean, for the Mets, it's like first you start off with the number 3 seed in the Brewers, beat them. Then you face the number 2 seed in the Phillies, beat them. Now you got the number 1 seed in the Dodgers. And I feel like as we talk so much about maybe that transition year or the litmus test of just trying to get everything sorted out in the David Stearns regime, this is the team you want to face. I mean, because by all accounts, with this whole idea of all these massive payrolls and everything like that, the Dodgers are the team that have an insane payroll when you consider the deferred money. I mean, the actual money that the guys on their roster is getting paid is outrageous. I mean, even compared to the Mets. So this is a team that is totally stacked. You see all-stars almost all the way up and down the lineup. So you know you're going to see a lot of good talent. And it's just a good matchup for you as an organization to see where you're at. And you know what? I think the Mets have a chance of winning this series. I don't think the Mets are totally outmatched. I like the Mets' advantage in the pitching department overall in the starting rotation, in particular with, like I said, the state of the Dodgers right now. I mean, if the Dodgers were fully healthy and you had Glass now and you had Kershaw and these other guys, then sure, you'd be much more scared. But this current Dodgers team, I feel like the Mets have a pretty good shot. So all in all, I'm pretty excited to see what happens.
Yeah, obviously the Dodgers do have, the top tier superstar power. But again, the Mets at this current moment, they're kind of sitting in this place where, in out of the entire National League, I'd say that the Mets and Dodgers are probably the two teams that have the deepest rosters. And even though regarding the Dodgers as of right now, where, you have Otani, Betts, and Freeman, a lot of their deep roster is hurt this year. And that's the main reason as to why it doesn't seem like they look like this powerhouse that they're supposedly supposed to be, which makes them a little bit vulnerable. But again, this is a really good Dodgers team. They won those two crucial back-to-back games against the Padres, who it looked like the Padres were aiming up to play us, and we were going to have a rematch of the wild card round from 2 years ago, but it just did not happen. Instead, we get a 2015 NLDS rematch. And for those of you who remember how that one worked out, the Mets ended up winning in 5 games. We all know the full-on highlight of the controversy between Chase Utley and Ruben Tejada. Ruben Tejada's pretty much his entire career going to shit like right after that, and Chase Utley still existing. But, you know, when it comes to that whole controversy, you know, there was, I mean, not only just a feeling that came back to Citi Field that was fueled with anger. Like, there was complete anger from Mets fans after what happened there. Right now, it's kind of just probably the complete opposite, where Mets fans are just as happy as they possibly could be. And again, like, the Dodgers are the team that have everything to lose right now. The Mets don't have anything to lose. And I feel like, you know, when you go into those types of tense situations, we talked about it with the Phillies, you know, I do think the Mets are still going into here, you know, a lot more calm in that matter. Would I say that game 4 against Philly, there's things that need to be cleaned up on the offensive side? Yes. And there are some things that need to be clued in here for them to actually sustain against a really good Dodgers team, but there are ways around it. Let's just say that. We know that they have talent. This Dodgers team, you know, they spent money out the wazoo this offseason, such as of course, the big Ohtani deal, getting Yoshinobu Yamamoto that we were in competition with them yet, and then also getting Teoscar Hernandez. We know that they still have Betts and Freeman. I mean, this is Glass now right here.
Trade and
they
sign.
Have Glass now too.
He's hurt, but
trade for Glass now.
It was still a big offseason move.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
It's insane. They had an insane offseason. But again, you know, the results still matter on the field. We know that the Mets really had a tough time with Glasnow early on in the season, him preventing us from sweeping them, I think, in LA. We're not going to have to worry about that. We're definitely seeing a more decimated rotation. I know that Dustin May is out. Gavin Stone just got surgery. Who are the other
Kershaw's
guys?
out.
I mean, Kershaw's out. I mean, we're definitely facing a decimated rotation, which could possibly keep us in the running to maybe outslug this Dodgers team if they pitch around, the noticeable at the top of the lineup and have a good game plan for that. But we'll get into that, obviously. But I do want to talk about Kodai Senga for a second, because we know that the game plan is still going to be done with precaution. Obviously, with him coming back, had this shoulder injury at the beginning of the season, came back, had the calf injury. They're still slowing this thing down. He pitched 2 innings in game 1 against the Phillies. It looked like he was going to be available for a possible game 5 against Philly. Didn't need it. Now he's getting game 1, and it looks like he's going to pitch 3 innings. And then it's all going to really depend on what goes on with David Peterson, if they're going to give him 2 or 3 innings. We know that Tyler McGill is on the NLCS roster, and I do want to talk about that NLCS roster in a second. But regarding this whole approach that they now have of getting an extra inning that they got last time from Kodai Senga, we'll see how they piece this thing together. I will just say, I think that David Peterson's probably the go-to here afterwards in long relief. But again, they have a fully rested bullpen. They have one less arm, which really doesn't matter because that one less arm that they got rid of, they weren't even using, and thank God they weren't. But Frank, what do you think about Kodai Senga going into game 1 of this series? Definitely going to be an abbreviated outing no matter what.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I'm not a fan of I guess the Phillies. I understood it based off where the pitching was set up with how tired they were in the Milwaukee series, but I don't love the abbreviated outing in game 1. To be honest, I kind of would have given Sean Manaea the ball. I feel like he's earned that, especially the way he did in this Phillies series, in the Brewers series. He's just been the ace. I mean, he's the guy that's working deep into the game. I don't love the idea of tiring out your bullpen on the very first game of the series when you know you have another game the next day. And for me, I hope Senga could go more than 3 innings, because the way I look at it is he's still working his way back from injury. I understand that. But you think about when you do rehab outings, it's like, okay, your first start, you go this amount of innings. Then the next time out, you go a little further, and so on and so forth. So I thought that with him going 3 innings the first time, plus getting extra rest since they didn't have the game 5 against the Phillies, I mean, is 4 innings too much to ask for? I mean, I would love 5, but I mean, I know it's getting really greedy, but still, I just don't like the idea of when you play that kind of game, you're relying on so many different guys to have a good game. Because what happens is that if you know Senga can only go 3, you say, okay, I need David Pearson to be good behind him, and Pearson could go 2 to 3. Okay, I need Reed Garrett or McGill or Stanek or whoever to also be good behind him. And against this Dodgers team, I just don't quite know if the Mets have that many arms on a particular one day who all could be effective. I feel like somebody in the mix is bound for a little bit of some struggles, and then that makes things really tough. And on the flip side, for the Dodgers side, there is this idea that they might be going to a bullpen game tomorrow. So
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like you try to win, you try to win today and then have the bullpen games tomorrow.
I think something just invisible just flew into Frank's throat. But yeah, I mean, I understand what you mean by that, and I do get it in the sense of, you know, the full on star power to star power when I look at it. Um, but you know, when it comes to the only idea that I'd say that is for the whole thought of putting Kodai Senga here is mainly just kind of what they tried to do against Philly, where it wasn't amazing how they did it, but I feel like when you have like just a star-studded lineup at the top, or whether he is going to face, you know, 6 or 9 batters or whatever, I do feel like it is the best way to set the tone in the series to put out your best gun in Kodai Senga, because I do trust that Kodai Senga will give you 3 innings of 1-run ball or 3 innings of no runs. Like, I trust that he will be able to do that. But when it comes to, you know, the full on, you know, rest of the bullpen, they have extra rest days. I mean, I get it. But kind of burning your long relief options is a little bit suspect. It still will be. And you're kind of relying on Sean Manaea to give you 7 once again. And even though Sean Manaea has been fantastic so far, and has been fantastic all year, you know, asking a starter to go 7 in a playoff series against this good of a Dodgers lineup that can give you just fits, I don't know. It is a tall task. But usually the tall tasks that we see that the Mets have in front of them, usually they somehow work out, and then the small tasks, sometimes those just shrink to the bare minimum of what they can do. So I don't know how they're going to approach this thing. It would be nice, again, to get like 4 innings from him instead of 3, or maybe even 5, because let's not also forget, Senga had extra rest. Senga had extra rest as well. So, you know, if he was able to ramp up in those extra days of rest he had, it probably would be ideal to stretch him out a little bit farther than you expect him to, but we'll see how the situation is come after 3 innings when it comes to Senga tonight.
There's a couple other things that I'm considering. So, regardless of how you may feel about David Peterson, results based, you can make the case he's been the Mets' most consistent reliever this postseason. I mean, with some of the struggles we've seen from Maton, from Budo, from Stanek, and even Diaz, they've put Pearson in a lot of different scenarios so far. They said, okay, go the 9th. Okay, work the 7th, work the 8th, work the 4th and 5th. Like, he's kind of been everywhere. And like you talk about like burning some of your best bullets. It's like, okay, you're losing Senga and you're losing David Pearson the same day, where it's like, wait a second, I kind of maybe want Peterson for some other things that might be happening throughout the course of the series with how good he's been compared to everyone else. Danny Young is on the roster as a lefty, but they didn't use him either and I really would not want to use him against this team
Yeah.
because that's just disaster. We've had this guy's pitched in weeks now. You're just going to throw him into the Dodgers? I don't think so. So it's like
Yeah.
Peterson is really that other guy who would be in the bullpen. So that definitely is pretty confusing to me. And then the other thing that is just interesting when you look at like the different pitching and stuff like that is you're talking about like, okay, we need Mania to go deep. Again, I just feel like there are times you're asking a lot. And for Senga, they're talking about like, you're talking about maybe saving him. Saving him for what? I mean, look at where we are. Like, there's not much left. I mean, we're in the NLCS here. What are we playing for? What are we trying to save you for? Like, we need to get to the World Series here. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like if Senga's telling you, oh, I could go 200 pitches. Oh, I could do what the team needs me to do. Well, why am I only doing 3 innings and like 40 pitches? I mean, I feel like we could wrap it up a little bit here. I mean, again, this is the NLCS against the Dodgers we're talking about. This is what you save for. This is what you play for. I mean, this is what we're supposed to do. So I don't really love the whole, let's play it safe. We want to build them up. I mean, no, this is not the regular season. I mean, this is the NLCS.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just don't agree with that approach, in my opinion. And again, like we said, he's coming back from a calf injury. He's not coming back from a shoulder, a Tommy John, an elbow. Like, it's a calf. I mean, he should be able to really give me a little more than that.
Yeah, I will say one thing about like kind of the vision of kind of how they're piecing these things together. Because again, you are asking for a lot from Shamanai tomorrow regarding what's going on with Senga. You're asking for a lot from the bullpen today. I think when you talk about it from the standpoint of this being a 7-game series and it not being a 5-game series compared to a 3-game series, I feel like that's kind of how they're looking at it from a little bit more of a margin for error. Like that's kind of how I think that they're piecing this thing together where, let's worry about this game. And if it does not happen, we can make those adjustments the next game. And I'm not saying that it's like, okay, it's great to lose game 1 if that happens. Not saying that. But what I'm saying is if it goes south, because we've seen the Dodgers beat up the Mets before, and we've seen the Mets do well against the Dodgers before. But if you do see this go south, I feel like the margin of error is the main reason as to why they're taking this slow, and they have that in mind. When it comes to Kodai Senga, I do think that all bets should be on the table. Absolutely, because he is our number 1 pitcher. But I feel like you also have to cut it off at some kind of cap as well, considering the amount of reps he's had this year, which is basically non-existent in the span of a 162-game season, which he is definitely a weapon against a team like this. Like, this is your top guy, let's just say that, and he's a playoff performer, let's just say, unlike that Yamamoto guy, let's just say that. Even though he pitched a really good game in Game 5, let's just say that. I also do have this whole feeling with what Lane's saying, something like this, saying maybe a Game 7 for the Mets. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. I feel like the Mets are kind of accepting reality too, that like, if we win this series, it's not going to be in 4 games. It's not going to be in 5 games. It's not going to be maybe it won't be in 6. Maybe you have to go to 7 in this series. It's possible. So I feel like that's kind of how they're looking at it with the margin of error. But I understand if, Senga's saying, if you want me to throw 200 pitches, I mean, listen to him. Why not you listen to him? Because let's not forget, early on in the season, talked about him being such a perfectionist and, my mechanics are not there. If he says he's ready to go, you might as well trust him in that fact when you trusted him all the way back and saying, oh, well, I'm not ready to go. Okay, Senga, take all the time you need. So right now, if he's willing to go out there, you might as well give him the ball. I mean, it's the same thing that I talk about this all the time. Kind of like backing up the Terry Collins decision in Game 5 of the World Series. We talk about this all the time. If your ace wants the ball, you give him the ball. It didn't work out, but if your ace wants the ball, you give him the ball. Again, this is not a rookie. This guy is far from rookie. He is 31 years old. All right. He had his first year in the major leagues, was up for the rookie of the year technically, but he's a veteran. Like that's kind of how I look at it. And, and as a veteran, somebody who's pitched at that type of caliber for so long in Japan and in the major leagues last year, you kind of have to trust him. in that fact. So if he's willing to go a distance, I would let him go to distance. It all depends on how well he's doing in the game. But, I would give him the leash. Go ahead. Again, if your ace wants the ball, your ace wants the ball. If there's anything you want to add on that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if he's pitching game one, that lines up to him pitching game five. And if he pitches game five, if they're being so careful with his rest and everything like that, I don't see him pitching game seven. No, I know maybe in game seven, like everything's on the table, you use like everything you have,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really line up that way using him in game one.
Yeah, that is true. But I also think that they have trust in Severino keeping them in the game, because the way that this would line up, it's probably Kodai Senga for game one. Game two would be Manaya, like they said. Game three would be Severino. Game four would be Quintana. Game five would be Senga, like you said, and then you're going Manaya, Severino, if it's all necessary again. And I'm not trying to think about a game seven when we haven't even started game one yet, but in reality, if the Mets do end up winning this series, they're going to have to win this outright, most likely. I mean, I said that the only way that they beat Philly was going to be in 5 games. They did it in 4 games, so they went past my expectations of their possibility of winning. Maybe the Mets completely sweep the Dodgers here. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen in the future here. Maybe the Dodgers just come out completely flat. We've seen them do that in the playoffs before. But when it comes to just the reality of the situation and the large margin of error, this is a 7-game series. So when it comes to it, the Mets are going to most likely have to win this in 6 or 7 if they do end up winning. I do believe that. And I do think that the Dodgers, it's possible that they could win this in 5. They could win this in it's possible. The Mets definitely have a smaller window of how they can win this, because we do know that the Dodgers are the better team. Even if we do end up beating the Dodgers in this series, the Dodgers still on paper are the better team. But when it comes to because we all know that the Dodgers are going to be back next year, so it's not like we just ended their entire dynasty or their entire franchise. But I do think that the margin of error is the main reason as to why they're sprinkling these things in and out. But if I can say one thing, I hope that I'm getting 5 innings from Kodai Senga in game 5 regarding that, no matter what. He went 30 pitches, right, in game 1 against the Phillies. I don't know what the limit is right now. It better be 50 or 60. I don't know what it's going to be. I'm fine if they want to, if they want to slow this thing down but still have him be a part of this. But again, if he's vocally saying that I'm willing to pitch as long as it takes, you might as well trust him. Again, this is your ace. This is your number one guy.
I mean, oh god, and also like you mentioned about how they took a long time to originally get him started the first go round when he had his first injury. So they're like you said, they gave him a lot of time, and the expectation was he is supposed to be our ace. He did get a pretty good contract that he's gonna have to stay in because the whole innings and things like that. He's gonna have to stay in this contract. So I mean, it's time to show that you are an ace, though. I mean, an ace is not 3 innings, so I need to see a little, especially if he's like, I don't know, I don't like a liar too. So if he's telling me that I could do 200 pitches, but he really can't, and I'm not saying 200 pitches, but even 75, you know what I mean? Like, don't say that you could.
If
do
he's
all this,
not
but
Tom Seaver, then fuck this guy.
No, but if he's saying that he could do all this, but he really can't, I'm like, well, then why are you why are you trying to sound like a tough guy when you're not?
Yeah, exactly. We all know what happens to fake tough guys here. All right, come on. Anyways, speaking of guys and guys on this roster, we do want to talk about some of the roster changes that were made for the NLCS roster change. We did have a few different key moves that were made. They did decide to keep Luis Angel Acuna on the roster. It looks like he's going to be more of the pinch running situations, let's just say that. And Adam Ottavino was taken off of the roster, which, I mean, is great to see. It's great to see them just take him off completely. But he was not pitching. He did not pitch a single inning in the first 2 rounds. He should have been gone months ago. But you know what? It's glad to see progress in the matter when it comes to that. Of course, Francisco Alvarez and Luis Torrens, your two catchers. Nothing changes there. Like we said, Jeff McNeil being back from the wrist fracture. I will get into my comments regarding that. I'm sure everybody is waiting for it. The Mets outfielders pretty much the same. JD Martinez, their designated hitters. And then the 40-man inactives pretty much the same as it has been, but of course Ottavino being added there. Huskar Brazaban stays on there as he was not in the division series. And then pretty much everybody else on the 40-man that is either injured or just absolutely just not available and not eligible to be on the Major League roster. Pretty much the same as opposed to a few other things. We know that Danny Young stayed here, mainly probably just because they just wanted a second lefty, but it's not really anything do so because he also has not pitched a game in the postseason yet. I do think that when you look at this roster now, it is a little bit more deep regarding viable options. Do I agree with Jeff McNeil being on this roster? Absolutely not. But the Mets, they just cannot help themselves when they see a batting champion. So when it comes to the roster configuration, I'll clue you in here. Thank God Adam Ottavino's gone. I mean, it would have been nice to see DFA next to his name, but you know what? Beggars can't be choosers in that regard. Obviously, we did not see him pitch at all in the postseason so far, so it was kind of just a moot point. But them going with an extra position player, keeping Luis Angel Acuna on the roster, so maybe you get more pinch running opportunities now, and you don't see JDM getting forced out at home while he is chugging along 40 feet down the line. But I think that these moves, they were more expected than any surprises, kind of like, how we had Max Kranick on the wild card roster. What did you think about this one, Frank?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that makes sense. I kind of saw it coming. And I feel like one of the other things that this opens up the possibilities for is we've talked about the utilization of Acuna as someone who's also been defensive replacement. And with those defensive replacement opportunities have also led to some plate appearances in the ninth inning and the eighth inning. So I wonder that now they might go with McNeil as that defensive replacement, and he'll be someone that they maybe feel a little more comfortable getting those at-bats in the eighth inning, ninth inning, because he actually has the playoff experience compared to Acuna. It's just like a rookie that you're throwing in there. So maybe they feel a little bit better as far as like making McNeil the guy who's the defensive replacement. And with Jeff, it gives them, like you said, more options. So if they want to have McNeil do second and move Iglesias to third, if you want McNeil to make a start in the outfield, I feel like today might have been a day to consider it. We'll get to the Jack Flaherty profile later on, but I feel like we talked about maybe needing at least one more lefty batter, liking to have at least one more lefty bat for certain matchups. You now have that with McNeil, so that's good. And we'll just kind of see what he provides. I mean, I feel like he's got to be kind of eager to get involved. One of the other things that's interesting to me when we look at just the Mets lineup construction today, you have Iglesias. He dropped from the 5 spot all the way down to 7. So I feel like that kind of says a little bit about their level of confidence in him. We've talked about some of his struggles in the last couple of games against the Phillies with the strikeouts, particularly with men on. So if Iglesias is getting dropped down the order, they're not pulling the plug yet. But I think it signals that like he's a bad game or two away from McNeil getting a start, I would think. So it's something to kind of monitor. And like I've talked about, the guy that bats right after him, Tyrone Taylor, it's been a struggle for him too. So, I mean, again, you could consider the possibility of moving Nimmo to center and throwing McNeil in the corner. Just you have a couple more options you could mess around with now that you are Carlos Mendoza. But the thing that's interesting to me is keeping Danny Young because, like we said, they haven't really found a spot for him to use him. I don't see a spot to use him against this Dodgers team. Not saying I'm advocating for Ottavino, not saying I'm advocating for Braziban, but it is kind of like that similar philosophy, like we talked about with Acuna. It's like Danny Young does not have any playoff experience. He does not have any big game experience. So, like we said, Brosman has thrown a playoff game. Obviously, we know Ottavino has pitched in playoff games. Not saying they're better, but I'm just saying that I feel for Danny Young in the sense that if he did get brought in, I feel like he's getting put into the fire and just in like an awful spot that I don't know. I feel like it's just interesting. Like we said, there's like a couple other options you can go, but this is the direction they went.
Yeah, some people in the chat here. Frank Major saying all we need to do is believe. Stevie Mack coming in, one of our loyal viewers.
Hmm.
Melaza, I have not seen you in here before,
But we
but
appreciate you.
salute everyone. Thank you. Thank you for coming through. If you're new, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like button. Always can be appreciated. Um, Christopher C saying, yeah, Kiki dropped the F bomb saying, are we live? He said,
Unacceptable.
Kike, the type of caller to call into Mets Weekly. Yeah. To be honest, you're pretty accurate in that one.
Who
Let's just
likes to
say that.
sabotage broadcasts?
Our guy Tony
We know
Metro, a
that
Mets
name.
Weekly alum. For those of you who know him back in the days, saying I want no part of McNeil getting a big time AB. I absolutely will agree with you on that one. But apparently, this is still 2019, and we can regard Jeff McNeil as such a prized possession to this roster. Now, regarding into Jeff McNeil, I think it's pretty well overdue because we haven't seen him in a while. So I think it's overdue as to where I can give my opinions on this one. I think putting him on the roster is just a mistake, full on. And surprise, surprise. I mean, surprised, right? I personally think that, again, you're going with the bang for your buck, of course, of what he's done in the past. And what he has done in the past is not the player that he is now. And I think that that's pretty much been established already. Let's just say that. Here's how I look at it. Jose Iglesias has been phenomenal all year. I know that he had a few tough ABs in game 4, but still he has been productive and still a key component, one of the catalysts for this team. His presence alone has been great for this team, let's just say that. Luis Angel Acuna gives you more tools than Jeff McNeil. I understand he's the young kid, whatever. Regarding this whole utility crap with Jeff McNeil, he's not a utility player anymore. And I think that it's time to actually establish that in the fact that he should not be playing the outfield, okay? With a busted up wrist, a partially torn UCL that we still have not talked about in the past, and also the fact that he does not have a good arm. He should not be playing in the corners. So he does not have that luxury of playing in the corners anymore. He is a second baseman. That's what he is. This year at second base, he hasn't been playing it fantastic. He's been fine, serviceable, whatever. And then also talking about him being a possible left-handed bat. Let me just kill that for everyone as well. A sub 700 OPS over the last 2 seasons against right-handed pitching. So again, it's whatever. They want to bring Jeff McNeil back. I understand the power of friendship. He's friends with a lot of guys there. But I don't understand the need for Jeff McNeil to just burn another arm in the bullpen, who, yes, is Adam Ottavino, and I'm not advocating for Adam Ottavino whatsoever. But when it comes to any of those pieces, when you put them in here, I don't have any resemblance to just trust Jeff McNeil to give me anything at the plate. I'm sure at some point he's going to give me some kind of multi-hit game, I'm sure, in this series. Whatever. I'm sure he will. But in regards to Jeff McNeil, I don't see where he actually fits into this, especially with how you've seen the contributions of Walmart second baseman outplaying him this year and being a lot better. I don't see how he plugs into this one, but I'm sure they're going to find a way because once again, there's $12.5 million next to his name. That's the only reason why he's still here. Let's just remind that. And even though the Mets have basically made that McNeil deal look completely stupid with how many second basemen this year have been actual contributors in the most ways possible. We've talked about it when it comes to McNeil as a player. If he's not hitting 300, he is useless completely. And he's even more useless to me because he's even more banged up. He's not a utility player. He's a second baseman. So if there's anything you want to rebuttal in that regard, Frank, you can, because I know that Jeff McNeil is one of your guys. But I just don't see the equation that he fits in, especially when you're also keeping Luis Angel Acuna here, who I know could pinch run for you, but it just seems very, very counterproductive making so many substitutions in and out just to have Jeff McNeil here, who we saw win a batting title 2 years ago, and he'll do it forever. I don't see it. Again, I've always been one to say replace McNeil, but I can't do it. Yes, he had a great 40 games, but like I don't even know what to say anymore. Like you need your wrist to hit. And if we're gonna rely on that as something that could be on the playoff roster, I don't know. He's coming off the bench now, so it's not that big of an impact, but I don't see it. It's just me.
What was how did Starling Marte do in the series against the Phillies? How did he hit?
He was fine.
091? Was that a good series, you think? How has Starling Marte's defense been in the outfield all year?
And?
Okay, and do you think that a matchup against Jack Flaherty, who relies on a slider and a curveball breaking to the outside part of the play against right-handers, is a good matchup against Starling Marte, who loves to fish at that stuff? Do you think that's a good matchup for Marte?
I would much rather have Marte out there in right field, who can actually throw people out with his arm, and not Jeff
McNeil and Brandon Nimmo have identical arms. But you're starting Nimmo.
Well, Brandon Nimmo is actually a contributor to this offense, and McNeil has been garbage for the last 2 seasons.
Okay, but again, if you think that, listen, McNeil was having a good second half, I don't think Marte's a good matchup tonight. I think he's just kind of up there doing what he wants, flailing at everything. I think it would be nice to have another lefty bat out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, but he actually can provide you a tool. That's the thing. He can actually provide you a tool.
Which one?
His arm, his speed, his
he doesn't have. Ability. He doesn't have much speed. When has he shown speed? He doesn't steal anymore.
He has more speed than McNeil.
Yeah, but he's not using it.
Again, you're arguing McNeil and Marte here, but I prefer Marte because Marte is actually like a tool.
Overall, yes, but this particular matchup, I'd rather have McNeil tonight.
Again, like I said, against a right. Are you saying that because of a right-hander?
I'm saying because the right-hander with the kind of pitch arsenal he has and the way his pitches move is not a good match for how Marte has been lately. He loves to just fish at this stuff. Flyers gonna have a field day with this guy going for fishes. He's gonna catch everything. Just fish, fish, fish. That's what he does. You've seen it with the sliders. You know that.
And what has Jeff McNeil been doing this year?
That's much more advantageous to a left-handed hitter going right in his wheelhouse.
But he's been terrible against righties for the last 2 years.
And he was coming off a good second half. And there's a guy who was on the right
when
trajectory.
that second half happened, he broke his wrist.
And now he's healed.
You sure?
That's what they're saying. He didn't just magically come back.
We went an entire half of baseball wondering if he healed from the partially torn UCL in his elbow. He was hitting like shit.
And then he turned up and he was playing really well. 923 OPS in the second half.
Yeah, for 40 games. Again, then he broke his wrist. So broken wrist.
Has Marte had a 923 OPS in any months this season?
Yeah, but Starling Marte has been an actual contributor on this team with other tools. Jeff McNeil doesn't give you speed. He doesn't give you an arm. He doesn't give you any defensive ability anymore.
I see Marte with a -8 OAA, so he's not providing defense. He's at a 37 sprint speed percentile. He's not providing speed.
Did I ever say that Marte is perfect, though?
But you're telling me all these
Again,
tools.
You're talking about McNeil and Marte.
All these tools. I don't see them.
Neither of them I want here.
Okay, but you're saying like Marte is amazing. I don't see any tools. Where are they?
I'm saying Marte is a better bet than McNeil in terms of tools. I never said that Marte had amazing tools.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm sure Flaherty will have a lot of fun with him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, even if he does end up striking out against Flaherty, there are some keys when it regards to that. Again, like I'm saying, regards to Jeff McNeil, this is the full delusion that I'm talking about, where everyone saw what he did before what he's doing right now and say that it's a complete difference. Again, he literally broke his wrist, fractured his wrist, fractured his wrist, completely different. Hasn't played in 5 weeks. All of a sudden, he's going to just go back to what he was doing. Oh, because he got a hit in Fall League. Forgot.
No one's saying anything about Fall League. Did I mention the word Fall League at all? No, I didn't.
Again, that's what I mean. Everyone does this based off of carry-weight results.
They said this was the estimated time he was going to be out. You're acting like this was the magical heal that he wasn't expecting to come back. They said he would be back sometime in October. And we're now saying there's no reason for
him to be back. I'm saying he should be resting for the rest of the season because they don't need him.
So then why? So you want Ottavino then?
No,
Then why are you making a big deal about it? He's on the bench.
because Jeff McNeil does not belong on this team right now. They've done fantastic without him.
Then who should be here?
I don't know. I don't care. You literally can put, again, we've gone so far with Ottavino and Young not even pitching a single inning. So, I mean, you're just going to add an extra infielder as to where just creating even more of a logjam now over there. But, listen, I mean, because now this is how I see it. This is how I see it. After everything that Jose Iglesias has done to impact this team this year, all that really is taking it right now is for him to have two shitty ABs, and they are going to basically micro look at it and say Jeff McNeil is the starting second baseman.
It's more than two ABs. We've seen him striking out constantly on the inside pitch with men on. It's more than two ABs.
I still think he is a better option than Jeff McNeil at the plate with runners on. Is he not the best player this year with runners in scoring position on this
during
team?
the regular season? Yes, this is no longer the regular season. This is elite pitching in the postseason. It's not one for one. It's just
use
automatically
that same argument for
over.
Jeff McNeil, though. I can make that same argument for Jeff McNeil.
But if one guy is struggling,
what has Jeff McNeil done in the postseason?
If
you're going to give me a postseason argument, how about we talk about the horrendous postseason argument for Jeff McNeil in a
3-game sample size? We're really going to be talking about 3 games 2 years ago.
Sample size, correct?
There's more small sample size. Iglesias had 2 series. The guy's had like 7 games, 8 games.
Again,
that's triple what McNeil's played. Triple.
And
I'm telling you, he hasn't been good lately. That's why he got dropped in the order. Why did Iglesias get dropped in the order if he's doing so amazing? Tell me that. Answer me that.
Because they have other hitters that could be there situationally as well.
So Marte was worse than Iglesias was and is batting above him.
Well, Winker has one of the best
I didn't say Winker. I said Marte. I did not say Winker.
Winker has one of the best careers against Jack Flaherty.
I agree with Winker.
Marte should be lower. I do agree that Marte should be lower. But where would Jeff McNeil in that formula be? He'd just be batting 9th.
McNeil's had not been batting 9th lately. You know that. You know Alvarez and Taylor are 8-9. That's been the combination the whole way through. He's not going to be batting 9th.
He should. Again, I feel like we're all forgetting like what Jeff McNeil is now because of that amazing hot stretch he had before splitting his wrist in half.
It was a hit by pitch. It wasn't a split in half. I mean, let's not act like this is the most traumatic injury ever.
That is how frail this guy is now. And you're going to rely on him to play the outfield.
And when Marte got hit in the hand 2 years ago, that was,
that's just Marte's
that's
thing.
Part of baseball. That's part of baseball. Guy gets hit in the hand, in the wrist, things break. Mookie Betts, who's out for months, got hit in the wrist.
Frank, Marte didn't get hit by a 77-mile-an-hour curveball and injure himself and be out for 5 weeks.
If it hits a certain part of the body, it doesn't matter the speed. That's how bones work in the wrist and hand region. That's how it happens.
But again, if you get hurt by a curveball, that's pretty telling. Let's just say that. Again, and these are two injuries that he refuses to resolve whatsoever. There's no procedure, there's no therapy, there's no nothing. He sat out for
almost 2 months. That's healing. That's recovering. That's what happens with injuries. That's standard procedure.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm really sure that he's so unbruised. Anyways, it's not like he's about to turn 33 and has been declining in production for the last 2 seasons. But hey, he won a batting title, so let's shove him back in there. But I mean, Will White agreeing with me, saying the Flying Squirrel should not be there. But listen, he did have a great 40 games 5 months ago. So again, we'll see what happens regarding that. I think even though Jeff McNeil could be a really good piece. To begin with, even though he's not good in the corner outfield anymore, and he should not be used in the outfield because he can't use his wrist is all fucked up. He does not have a good arm, and he has not been a good utility player for like 2 seasons. Also, for the last 2 seasons, he has not hit right-handed pitching well at all. It doesn't matter who he is facing. But it doesn't matter because Jeff McNeil won a batting title 2 seasons ago, and that will solidify him for life. And it's definitely worth it to give him a $3 million raise next year for the next 2 seasons in this regarding situation. So yeah, you know what? it's great, even though you can get a second baseman at Walmart who can sing Latin pop songs in comparison to somebody like Jeff McNeil. Now, regardless, anyways, off of Jeff McNeil, because I could go on forever in this. We don't have any time. Anyways, let's move on to our pitching matchup in the opposition. Let's talk about Jack Flaherty, who we already talked about, somebody who does rely on his slider regarding somebody like Marte. But as for Flaherty overall, more of a 3-pitch right-hander, but he does have 5 different pitches. 43% four-seam, 28% slider, 21% curveball, 3% changeup, 2% sinker. Of course, the best graded pitch, shall we say, even though his slider is good as well, being his four-seam that sits 93 to 94, tops 98 miles an hour, over 15 inches of induced vertical break with backspin action. So it's more of a backspinner, not a riser, or whatever you want to talk about it being a two-seamer in that regard. The overall grades, a 111 stuff plus, a 99 command plus, and a 106 pitching plus. As for the rest of his arsenal, high spin cutting slider, which you basically can say is a cutter in the mid 80s, a sweeping action knuckle curveball with over 2,400 RPMs, a gyro fading changeup, and a late running two-seaming sinker, which is a little bit more vertical than the usual two-seaming sinker. As for some other notes you can get into here, of course, the lower arm slot. He's a right-hander. He's got the big swing and miss stuff, as per usual. He does have some great control. He does have some low floor command that you could take advantage of, which we'll get into in a second. He has registered a 43.6% whiff rate on his knuckle curve, which seems to be his go-to pitch with 2 strikes. He does have reverse splits, as right-handed hitters have posted a 730 OPS versus Flaherty. And the last time that we did see Jack Flaherty in the Mets sense, he faced the Mets once back in 2019, where he went 5 1/3 innings pitched, 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. He's obviously a completely different pitcher since then. But regarding the game plan against somebody like Jack Flaherty, who, yes, even though he does have the posted, reverse splits regarding that, of course, the Mets having the right-handed hitting dominant lineup. But when it comes to the approach against him, I do think that the best way, again, it's kind of just like talking about it with Nola, in the sense of getting to him with the long ball. But, again, we'll see how they can work counts regarding that. But the full-on breakdown regarding Jack Flaherty, what do you think about him, Frank?
Yeah, Jack is a guy that, like you mentioned, he's had a lot of change of scenery, change of arm slot. So he's a guy that, like, he's had his good moments, but he also has bad moments too. And his most recent start was against the Padres game 2, where San Diego really went off winning that game 10-2. He went 5 1/3, gave up 4 runs, only 1 walk. And I feel like that's kind of what the Mets got to be looking at there as far as when they're facing Jack. Is this someone who is going to attack the strike zone? He's not going to be walking batters. So if you see a pitch you like early, you might as well try to do something with it because, like we say, when you're facing better pitching, trying to string those hits together can be tough. You want to try to knock out the Dodger crowd, or you want to try to get momentum. Keep in mind you're on the road, you are batting first. So, these big bats, Lindor, Vientos, if you see something you like, maybe try to put something on the board, get out in front, give Senga a little bit of room to breathe. So I do want to see the Mets try to be a little more aggressive and not be in that situation where they're taking first pitch, taking second pitch, and now they're in the count, and now he goes slider, he goes curveball, and now we're just flailing and we're going down strike 3, because that was kind of what happened. We saw with Suarez. I mean, we saw it with Nola a little bit, as far as, like, they just have this one approach that they use against all pitchers, and if they face a different kind of pitcher, they don't always necessarily change their approach. So I do want to see them maybe be a little more aggressive, knowing that you are facing someone who's attacking the zone. And I feel like for Jack, he's also going to want to try to work deep into into this game for Los Angeles, knowing that they're maybe doing a bullpen game tomorrow. The Dodgers want to try to avoid their bullpen today. So I feel like you need to use that to your advantage. It's like he's going to be trying to keep his pitch count low. He's going to be coming after you. So I feel like I do want to see the Mets try to, if they see a pitch, even if it's first pitch swinging, try to do something with it.
He has had some inconsistencies regarding volume this year. Like he definitely has. So there is definitely a key to that as to where they can kind of make him work at the beginning with that. Obviously, the main guy that I'm looking at regarding this one, I think everybody is looking at Jesse Winker, 8 for 21 all time against Jack Flaherty. He definitely faced him with his time in the Central when he was with the Cardinals. 2 homers, 3 doubles. Of course, on the other side, we can talk about what Kodai Senga did against the Dodgers. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 2 balls. Yeah, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. But that was last year, of course, at Citi Field. Different atmosphere, different team. Of course, you can't really add Shohei Ohtani into the mix when you're talking about something like that. But when it comes to somebody like Jack Flaherty, I do think that there is a way that you can see him kind of favor against right-handed hitters, because he does give a lot of right-handed hitters as to why he has these these reverse splits in that regard. I do think that he can give you a lot of pitches to pull from a right-handed side. Let's just say that. We know that the fastball, he does come a lot in with that again. Depending on the movement as well. The slider is more of the lower third of the zone, because there is a possible way you can be out in front, but if he hangs something, you can pull it. And then, of course, the down and in knuckle curve, which he usually uses as the put-away pitch, which he does command fairly well. So if you get to 2 strikes, you most likely want to lay off that pitch, let's just say that, unless he locates it properly. Again, I think that the 2-strike approach is going to be something to look at. Let's just say that, because it all is really kind of how they fend against that knuckle curve. Again, we have talked about it, like I said, very similar to somebody like Aaron Nola in regards to that, going to pound the strike zone, going to try and contact manage if he's not getting the swing and miss stuff. But, regardless of, how he contact manages in the way, I do think that eventually you're going to have to, work counts. But overall, I do think he's going to give you a good enough pitches to hit. So you're going to have to allow him to give you those pitches to hit. And hopefully they can knock him out early, because not only, like you just said, regarding the situation, I do think that, knocking him out early will definitely tax the Dodgers bullpen in regards to game 2 as well. And that situation kind of lines up in a different way. Even if you win this game or not, you definitely have, some bullets you've put through the Dodgers bullpen in regards to that. So you've had seen some inconsistency struggles regarding somebody like Jack Flaherty this year. So I do think that that's kind of how they're going to have to kind of play at it, is try to knock him out early, even though he's really good the first time through the order. We'll see. We'll see if if he has his best stuff or he doesn't. But again, volume is going to be something that the Mets are going to have to try and control regarding their bullpen game tomorrow to kind of get ahead, of course, if they end up losing this game and have to tie it up going into Citi Field for game 3. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm looking at for the Dodgers is Alex Vega. He had the injury in the last game against the Padres, so he gets left off the roster. And they replace him with Brent Honeywell. And Honeywell is a guy who's had starter experience. And you also have Landon Knack. He also has made some starts too. So I can see the Dodgers, knowing the way Dave Roberts is and how much of a quitter he is, if the Mets do get out in front and like they're beating up Jack Flaherty, if that does happen, if they get a good amount of runs across, he's not going to go to the relievers he's using tomorrow. He's using a long reliever. He's using the position player. He is not going to let today affect tomorrow. So I feel like, just knowing the way Dave Roberts is, he will just let a long reliever go out there and let whatever happen, and not try to lose 2 games trying to save today's game.
We'll see what happens. Again, we know that Dave Roberts has been known to pull the plug even when a starter is cruising. You know that he does have a little bit more of a shorthanded bullpen in regards to guys that are healthy that he can trust. Of course, like you said, Vesia, him going down yesterday. So it's definitely going to be something to watch in regards to that. So is it possible that you do get 5 innings from Jack Flaherty? Sure, but you're definitely going to get some opportunities in regards to that. Um, some other things that I do want to cover in regards to, of course, the bullpen of situations with that. We know that Adam Ottavino is now out of the equation. I do want to see one thing as to where McGill gets slided in past somebody like Peterson. I don't know if it's McGill because Maton, it's been very shaky. Budo, it has been very questionable. I know that Stanek and Diaz are most likely 8 and 9. I am curious to see what the typical 7 is going to be. I don't know where they're going to go in regards to that. Could they just go Jose Budo? Maybe, but this is a team that does not chase in the Dodgers, and they definitely will work outs against somebody like Jose Budo. We've seen them actually do it earlier in the year. Different situation, of course, different thing regarding that. But I think that when you look at Senga for the typical 3, which I hope that he goes longer, like you said earlier on, Senga 3, Peterson 2 or 3, and then 7, 8, 9 in that regards. I do think Stanek gets the 8th, Diaz gets the 9th, but with the 7th inning, I don't know how they're going to bridge that together. Are they going to go to somebody like McGill, depending on what part of the order is up? I think that's kind of how they look at it. Maybe this is another one. Reed Garrett, possibly. I don't know regarding the rest that he has had. He pitched he didn't throw many pitches in Game 4, so I think
He didn't even
good,
he didn't
right?
get an inning. I think he did like
who's the one who
2/3
threw a
of an
lot of
inning.
pitches? Who's the one who threw a lot of pitches in Game 4? Was it Diaz?
No one
Diaz
really.
did.
No, I
No
don't think
one?
he just did the ninth inning.
Peterson did. Yeah.
Yeah, Peterson did,
Yeah.
but he's a starter. He had a few days. I mean, the Mets play wasn't Wednesday.
Garrett would probably be in that mix. It all really depends on how they want to use him. Could it be possible that maybe, something like, could it be possible that maybe they do 2 innings with Stanek? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. We haven't seen them do that yet.
I wouldn't.
But we already know that he would be doing it based on adrenaline as the playoff riser that he continues to be, like he is. But I do want to see how they kind of utilize this. Again, it's really odd because in regards to, Senga, of how they're giving the workload and kind of easing him back in and basically rehabbing in the postseason with him. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. It's a little scary, but in regards to somebody like Kodai Senga, who is your number 1 guy, I do think that it's worth it in the end. But in regards to the situation with the bullpen, again, like we said, with Minaya needing to get him, he needs to give us some distance as well. And the workload is definitely something that some of these guys in the bullpen aren't used to. But I do think that we'll see what happens regarding that 7th inning, that 6th inning. It all really depends on the success rate of how we have going. But overall, the plan regarding somebody like Kodai Senga, it looks like it's just going to be 3 innings. Hopefully it's longer than that. I hope that it is because, again, he's had that extra rest. But if they don't want to push it, they don't want to push it. And let's not forget, on the other side, the Dodgers are going to be doing a bullpen game, most likely in Game 2 or Game 3. So they're shorthanded as well. It's not like it's not an even playing field in that regard. So we'll see what happens. They do have one less reliever that is active right now in Adam Ottavino, but he was not pitching anyway, so it didn't really matter. We'll see what the trust is in Maton. I personally would have considered taking him off of the roster, but again, regarding with Adam Ottavino, that's a good choice, I think, to take off as well, given the usage and his overall consistency. But we'll see how they use this bullpen because, again, this is a fully rested bullpen as compared to a bullpen like the Dodgers, who played a lot more games in this NLDS. The Mets won in 4, they won in 5, and they also had to do some bullpen games in regards to that National League Division Series against the Padres as well. So I don't know how it is. We'll see what the game plan is in regards to that. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add regarding the pitching staff, because I feel like we already let it off all on the table regarding Kodai Senga in the postseason. And them kind of just limiting the workload. Hopefully it's 50 to 60 pitches at least. But to be honest, I mean, in the postseason, it's definitely something that I would look at for, extending it beyond belief. But again, in game one, larger margin for error with having a best of 7 series against a Dodgers team that you know that you're not going to end up sweeping unless they do by some miracle. I don't think it's going to happen. At the end of the day, this is going to be a tough team. So the margin of error is definitely something that they can use to their advantage. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. But hopefully we do get some distance from Kodai Senga because he did say he was ready. So again, I would trust the ace as well. Now, as for the keys to the game, Carson's keys to the game for game one, pretty much dropped some hints throughout this entire stream, but I do want to end it off in regards to that. And I do want to just talk about something that's very similar to this Phillies series, talking about it from the bottom up. Now, like the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Dodgers do have this one-of-one, star power, but in a different level, of course, from Shohei Ohtani to Mookie Betts to Freddie Freeman, and they're also getting a monstrous campaign this season from Teoscar Hernandez. Now, as for the rest of the lineup, like the Phillies, the 7, 8, and 9 hitters for the Dodgers have been very lackluster. The Dodgers 7, 8, and 9 are posting a combined 651 OPS, which now remains as 26th in the major leagues this season, and for the main reason has been their 578 OPS with runners in scoring position this season. Again, you got to attack and challenge the bottom of the order with your best swing and miss stuff, which is always the best defense, again, and especially against a top-heavy lineup. Number 2 here is the Unicorn Witness. Now, let's be honest here, okay? There is no correct way to get Shohei Ohtani out. You just kind of have to get lucky in that regard. He has elite numbers across the board, whether you're talking about it underlyingly or just in the back of the baseball card. The man is an incredible baseball player and one of the best, if not the best, of this generation. And also with the prolific ability to swipe second instantly if you were to pitch around him and walk him. But here is the best thing that we've got here. Do not give him any pitches to pull. Just 6 of his 54 home runs and 19 of his 99 extra base hits this season have come from using the opposite field. He's a threat no matter what, but from the leadoff spot, you have to try and limit as much damage as you can. His B and C swing are still remarkable and incredible, but the best way to take away his dominance for the time being, the glove side is your best friend. Subside the damage because you're not going to avoid it. This is Shohei Ohtani that we're talking about here, so what do you know? Now, as for the third one, regarding to Jack Flaherty, wear and tear. Although Flaherty has been excellent all year, the volume has been spotty. Like I said, he has only thrown a pitch in the 7th inning just 4 times this season, and has gone past 100 pitches just once, and has not gone past 100 pitches since the 30th of May this season when he was on a completely different team. The result of that has been hitters slashing 262, 338, 469 against Flaherty the third time around the order, and he's also averaging 16.7 pitches per inning, which is second among starting pitchers this season. He's going to run a lot of full counts as hitters make a lot of contact with his pitches, which is more than 88% of the time. Flaherty, like I said, he's going to give you a lot of pitches to hit. Let him throw as many possible to knock him out early. And especially with that emphasis, with the Dodgers going with a bullpen game like we said, knocking him out early is definitely going to be a key regarding going forward in this series as well. Frank, I'll go to you regarding these keys. Anything that you want to add in terms of the notes? Because again, like this is it's definitely a vague blueprint, let's just say that, going into game one, but it's definitely things that they need to try and do to limit a Dodgers team that we know can attack from all angles on their team.
The key is being aggressive against that bottom half of the order. We know that for the Mets team, try to throw some strikes, but what I'm looking at is not even so much Senga. I'm more so concerned about like Peterson's probably coming in after him, and then maybe Reed Garrett or Budo after him. All those guys every now and then can lose the strike zone. They do rely on chases, and far too many times are throwing balls out the zone, and just kind of hoping that these guys are going to go after it is not a game plan that works against the best teams. So just trying to not walk those guys is huge with just how top heavy the Dodgers are, especially in the power department. So you're talking about like limiting that one big swing from Ohtani. But to go one step further of, okay, well, don't let Ohtani get the big swing when there's guys on in front of him. Because if he hits a solo shot, whatever, if it's a 3-run homer or, God forbid, a grand slam, all of a sudden the game could be over. So trying to not give free base to those guys for how much they've been struggling. Let them actually beat you with their bats. This way you could face Ohtani and Betts in the easiest possible scenarios to not let them beat you too bad. And that's really what it comes down to. And then, like Jack, we talked about, I wonder with how big a game this is for the Dodgers, if he is rolling, I feel like this will be the one time they're actually going to let him cut it loose and just kind of see what happens. But overall, I feel like they shouldn't be trying to play the tire out game. They should try to overall beat him because, like we said, if he's going to be attacking the zone, you have pitches to hit, go get him. There's not a game that's going to be 1-0 or nothing like that. So you got to be able to swing the bats too. The Mets have done a good job with that. They've fought all year. And I am kind of curious, like, maybe like one more like additional key, not so much for this series in particular, but we've talked about the past couple weeks. The Mets have just been so good against bullpens that I wonder what this Dodgers pen versus the Mets matchup is going to look like, because I know Hoffman and Strahm and these guys didn't do good, but they're supposed to be great relievers, like Iglesias on the Braves and Williams on the Brewers. They're supposed to be these amazing relievers, and the Mets had success against them. But this Dodgers pen, they have Evan Phillips, they have Blake Trinan, they have nice guys. But I think overall, I don't think they have quite the amount of arms that we've seen in totality for some of these other pens. So seeing how the Mets do against those middle relief guys, I think is an additional key.
We'll see what happens in regards to the Dodgers bullpen. We'll definitely get a little bit more of a look at it, of course, in the current situation that it's in. We know that they had an injury to one of their relievers, like we said, Vesia. I don't even know how to say his name possible. But again, they also have a bullpen game regarding to all the injuries to their starting rotation. I mean, if you want to list pretty much all of them, they have had so many hits to that starting rotation that it's actually crazy. Obviously, I don't feel bad for a Dodger team that basically just uses their money for pretty much everything in regards to that. But when it comes to that Dodgers team, we know that Kershaw is out, Dustin May is out, Tony Gonsolin is out, Tyler Glasnow is out, River Ryan is out, who I believe was the guy that they called up. He also got hurt. Sheehan is also out. Stone, like we said, just had shoulder surgery. I mean, they have so many guys who are out. I know Brusdar Graterol is also out as well. They also do have our old friend, what's his name, Connor Brogdon, who we had here for a second. He's also out as well. So it's definitely going to be a short bullpen. Let's just say that. There's other guys that you need to look out for. Michael Kopech, one in general. I know that the Mets have hit him well in the past when he was a starter. But again, let's just say if there was a team to grab potential of Michael Kopech that was being wasted by the White Sox, it would be the Dodgers. So they got him. I hate the baseball gods that they allowed the Dodgers to pick up Michael Kopech. But we'll see what goes on in regards to that tonight. Other questions that you guys have in the chat, let us know. Christopher saying that I changed the keys. Yes, I did. I made that as one of the main priorities going into this series. For those of you who were here for our keys to the game graphics in the last series, the keys were just kind of boring. We needed to make them shinier, and we did it. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. Um, Explosive saying, I think this is in regards to Jack
Bueller,
Flaherty.
we were talking about.
Bueller. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Bueller. Bueller, I know that they could put up quality ABs against him. We've seen them match up fairly well against him. I'm not really concerned about the matchup against the starting pitching. I know that we did well against Yamamoto, but we know that Yamamoto could cruise no matter what.
And he
But they're
had the bad
shorthanded here.
start first go round as well. Like he
He
had a
did.
good start and a bad start. So I mean, it's tough. You can get either version when it comes down to a few of these guys. Honestly, like that's kind of like the how the Dodgers rotation is right at this current state. Like they could be good or they could be bad. Like it really could go either way.
Yeah, it's definitely about setting the tone for this series. Like I said, with Kodai Senga, their best gun, of course, he hasn't been healthy, so they're kind of easing him in. But when it comes to setting the tone for this game, it's going to be a key as well as to where if a lot of these moving pieces can keep us in this game and keep it low scoring, if we could get personally, here's how I think. And again, I talked about this regarding Jose Quintana in Game 4. It did not happen, but it had to happen in other ways. The Mets just like had to do something with the bases loaded and stop crapping their pants in that regard to win that game, and they did because the Phillies were handing them that game. But regardless as to where we're talking about this here, if the Mets, and this is another take that I'll go into it in regards to the Mets, if the Mets pitching staff as a whole gives up 2 to 3 runs tonight, earn whatever. If 2 to 3 runs cross the plate for the Dodgers against the Mets' entire pitching staff tonight, which you're going to have a lot of weapons used, they will win this game. So that's how I kind of look at it. Is this team needs to keep them in this game because we all know that they like to hit in these bunches and back and forth. We already know about the Mets offense, but again, talking about overall distance, we know that you're not going to get it from Kodai Senga today. We hope that you do. Again, we'll see. Again, I don't know how much they want to push it. I understand them wanting to be cautious, but again, this is the playoffs, so we'll see what happens. But in regards to, the whole pitching staff, just keep us in the game. That's it. And if they have to have some kind of plan where they walk the top 3 hitters, so be it. I know that there was something that they definitely did the last time they were in LA. They're not going to be able to sustain that the way that they have, but I'm just saying that there's got to be a game plan for the top part of that lineup, and then trust your stuff, like we have said in regards to pitchers like Sean Manaea a lot. It goes for pretty much everybody else here, and we already know the high-profile stuff that Kodai Senga has. So in regards to this game, I'll give you your final remarks going into this one. I know that, guys, for those of you who don't know, Frank is not going to be here for the post game tonight, but our other co-host, Andrew, will be here. So Andrew stands once again. He will be back. For those of you who love him, he will be back for the podcast and also for the post game. So the last that we hear from you, Frank, today. What do you think going into this series, New York versus LA, National League Division Series 2015 rematch? Man, say that 5 times fast.
Yeah, I like the team that we have right now. I feel like it's a really good bunch. It's gone as far. We have a lot of different guys here who have been stepping up. When you look back to last time the Mets faced Dodgers 2015, you had Michael Kodai starting Game 1 in left field, and he was a disaster. He fell on his face. Conforto ended up taking his job and running with it. That's when he was good. Ruben Tejada, even though he got hurt, he wasn't hitting well. David Wright, as much as we love him, in that time period, he wasn't hitting great. So overall, this is a different Mets lineup. I mean, you feel like at any one of these moments, a lot of these guys could step up. I mean, you had Travis d'Arnaud batting 5th for the Mets. He could have and you have Alvarez, who, listen, d'Arnaud overall better, but Alvarez has just as much power as he does. Alvarez bats 9th this Mets team. So it's a different group. You know what I mean? Like we've overcome more. They were big time underdogs against that Dodgers team when it was Kershaw and Greinke in a best of 5. So I like our chances this time. I feel like, the Phillies were Phillies were tough, Brewers were tough. This team is battle tested in a short amount of time. They've had a really difficult past few weeks of competition that I feel like they're ready for the challenge. So I'm just very interested to see how it goes.
We'll see. Again, this is the team that we knew that you have to get through in order to get to the World Series. Now, the Mets have taken down the 3 seed. They have taken down the 2 seed. They now face a third in a row division winner. They're going to have to take them down to advance to the World Series. The Mets are 4 wins away, eight wins away from the crown. Can you believe that? I mean, it's crazy. We usually don't have these types of conversations every year because in regards to October, we're usually talking about off-season stuff. And hopefully this is a yearly occurrence, like I've said before. But also another year occurrence that you got to put in here is you're going to be facing this team pretty much every single time. You're going to have to get through them. And again, we'll see where we're at in regards to the Mets being the East Coast Dodgers, as our owner has coined the term in the past. Now, for those of you in here, make sure to hit the like button if you have not already. It really helps us out. Subscribe, turn on post notifications to not miss our post game, as well as our pregame for Game 2 tomorrow, which I believe will be 2:30, because I think that the game is at 4 o'clock. It's a matinee tomorrow, which is kind of weird scheduling, let's just say that. But in regards to all the future content, of course, all postseason long, we will be going live for pre and post games before every post game, before every single postseason game. Follow everyone individually, including our third host, Andrew, who is not here but will be here for the post game, basically switching places with Frank. Frank is going to go to bed because he does not want to be awoken during midnight, so we're going to have to do without him. But he will be back tomorrow. In regards to that, we will see you guys next time. We're going to give you guys a breather before this one starts. We went a little over the time. But other than that, last thing, of course, let's go Mets. And of course, enjoy the game.